Hello, everyone. We are going to talk today about the consistency sacred strength. Um, so, consistency is part of the executing domain, but it's a bit unique in that it's people focused. It's not so much when we think about consistency, we can think about doing something in a consistent way or having a consistent process, but ultimately, this strength really is about how we treat other people and how we help other people to achieve things. So it almost leads into a influencing type of a strength, but in fact, it is an executing strength. Now, I happen to have this strength high. It's actually my number 9, so it is in my sacred strengths. Kim is the opposite on this one. This is actually in her shadow strengths. It's her number 32. Now, here's an interesting fact is consistency is all about treating people the same way, being fair, making sure everything is fair, making sure everyone has the same opportunity. There's another strength, which is kind of the other side of the coin of consistency. So now in the strengths, we don't really talk about opposites. There aren't really opposing strengths because the strengths themselves are, in fact, they're really neutral. But you can look at some and say, well, that's kind of the other side of the coin. And so the other side of the coin of consistency is individualization. And we will be talking more about that later. But individualization is recognizing that everyone is different and everyone has different needs. And you don't treat everybody the same. You have to treat them as individuals. So we'll get to that video in the next week or so. But for right now, we're going to focus on the consistency strength. And oh, by the way, before I leave into individualization, like I said, I'm high consistency. That's my number 9. My individualization is number 29. Now, Kim, she's kind of flip-flopped. She has high individualization. That's her number 7. And her consistency is number 32. So you can see that it's very common that if you're high in one of these strengths, you're going to be low in the other. Not always, it's not a guarantee, but generally speaking, that is what you're going to see as you're looking at different people's strengths. So this is an area where Kim and I are very different. And when the good thing is that when we know our strengths, we study our strengths, and we're living within our strengths, we can understand how to make these things work to our advantage, these differences. I think a lot of times people that don't understand their strengths, they just get frustrated when someone is different, when somebody does something in a different way than they do, or they have a different process. And it's very important to understand your strengths and to love the strengths that you have, even if they're your shadow strengths, because those shadow strengths might in fact be the strengths of someone you care about, a significant other or a spouse, or it could be a child or just a good friend. It doesn't matter. The point is that we need to learn to embrace all the strengths, because when we do that, it's going to help us to understand and love and appreciate others in our lives. So, all right, let's talk about the sacred part about consistency. One of the things I said earlier is that this strength is all about treating others fairly, making sure everybody's treated fairly, and making sure everyone has the same opportunities. So this is really great. The mantra of the person with high consistency would be something along the lines of no one gets left behind. That is very much sums up the consistency, high consistency mindset. They want to make sure that everyone is accounted for. Everyone can be brought along the journey. So one of the things I think where a person with high consistency would work really well, if you've ever bought a piece of like furniture that you had to assemble, an inexpensive piece of furniture, maybe a bookcase or a cabinet or something, and you had to assemble it. And so it comes, or you pick it up at the hardware store, you bring it home, you open up the box, and you got all these different boards labeled A, B, C, and D, and you got this little baggie of screws, and they give you this absolutely awful little Allen wrench that that hurts your hand to use. If you've done this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they give you the instruction booklet. So this is where a person with high consistency is needed. When they print out that instruction booklet, they design it. They want to make sure that anybody who buys this product can follow these instructions. It is very important that they are foolproof and that anybody who basically can look at pictures and can see things can follow it to put this product together. So this would be the ideal, that's what I always think of as the ideal job for a person with high consistency. Again, nobody's going to get left behind. We're going to make sure that everybody understands and everybody has the tools they need. We're going to make this kit so basic that every screw can be turned with this silly little Allen wrench thingy we're giving you. And that's, you know, we're going to make it so, yeah, we're not going to have any problems. Their goal is not to have customers call them back saying, I can't put this thing together, or I'm returning this item. They don't want that. So that is kind of, apply that now to other jobs. And let's say you're a manager with high consistency, or you're some kind of a leader, and you want to make sure, again, that everything you do, every process you create for achieving the goals of your business, because remember, this is an executing strength. And executors are all about making sure things are done the right way. So the right way to do it is the way that everybody can follow it and nobody gets confused about it. So that's the sacred part. What is the sinister part? Well, it's really the exact same thing. Is that, first of all, the sinister part of that would be this lack of flexibility, I guess. That's a big part of it. People with high consistency definitely lack flexibility, and a lot of people, I think, are actually proud of that fact. They embrace it. They embrace that lack of flexibility. And that in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. But when you get into a leadership position, we have to understand that the executing strengths, generally speaking, are kind of judgy strengths. And consistency is no exception to that rule. And I know that because 8 of my 10 top 10 strengths are in fact considered judgy strengths. I'm a very judgy person. So what a high consistency person is going to do is they're going to judge everybody's ability or way of doing things based on how they do things. So if I'm high consistency and I have a particular process I want to follow, like say I'm working in a restaurant and I chop an onion a certain way, I'm going to expect every single other person in the kitchen that works for me to chop that onion the same way. Now, maybe somebody has a different way. Maybe somebody has a better way. But for a person of high consistency, we're not going to embrace that. Our expectation is this is the way it should be chopped. This is the way the onion should be handled. So you can see how this can be limiting. This can limit other people from being creative or from showing you a new way of doing things. So you can get to where you're not really open to learning something new or appreciating a different way of doing something. So it can give you that rigidity that could end up causing some problems later on down the road. But it can get worse. So it can get even more sinister because the high consistency person, again, not wanting to leave anyone behind, will set the bar for their group very low. So if, for example, if I'm a manager in a business and I'm trying to achieve certain things or get people on board with a certain concept, one of the things that a high consistency person is going to look at is they're going to say, who is the person on my team that is going to struggle the most with this? And I have to break this thing down to the point to where this person can get it too. So what's happening here is you're really kind of setting the bar low. And as a result of that, how well is your team going to perform? If you're constantly catering to the lowest performing person on your team, what's that going to do to the high performing people? Best case scenario, it's going to really frustrate them. It could get worse. Worst case scenario is it's going to limit, again, their creativity. It's going to limit their ability to contribute and to grow. And that's the last thing that anyone would want. We never want that to happen. So how do we avoid that? How do we avoid that if you do have high consistency? How can you honor your strength? Because this strength does need to be honored. There's a lot of great things about consistency. How do we honor this strength without letting it go sinister? One of the things we can do is, excuse me, as an executor, we can be very firm about our process. So executors like to complete steps. We like to check off certain steps as we do things. So our process, we can be consistent in the process, but we have to allow the individuals to apply that process to the way that they're doing things. So we do have to learn not to be quite so rigid. Use the good part of it. Use the good part of consistency. Making sure everyone has a process that they can follow, but allow others also to improve on the process. Don't get that stuck in that judgy mindset of this is how it should be done. Think of it instead as this is the way I want you to get started to do something. This is the way we're going to start, and we're going to see how it can evolve or how other team members can evolve it down the road. So anyway, I think that's about it for consistency. I think we covered it. Great strength. Again, one of my sacred strengths. I really love this strength. Thank you so much for checking in with me today. I hope you found this video useful. I look forward to seeing you on my next video. And until then, remember, inspiration starts here.